Quick update right now on the markets. If you look right now, you will see lower across the board. So you still have the Dow down more than 400 points. A huge market sell-off. You can see investors, this is clearly a risk-off day, looking to perceived safe haven assets such as treasuries and gold. After the bell host, David Asman has been speaking. I'm going to bring him in now about the markets with me this morning, but more importantly, exclusively with Dallas Fed President Richard Fisher. What did he have to tell you, David?
Richard Fisher is very concerned about news that there may be a new quantitative easing as a result of what is happening in the markets and what's happening in the world economy. He told me, and this is an exclusive to Fox Business Network, that there are no plans at all for any new QE. Now, of course, Richard Fisher is a hawk in the Fed. He was a dissenter along with Plosser in the last Fed meeting that they had. So you have to take what he says from his perspective, which is one of more of a tight monetary policy than the loose monetary policy. But he says it's not just him. And I'm going to do some quotes. I don't know if we have these made yet, but I'm quoting Richard Fisher now, and I double-checked all of these quotes with Richard Fisher. He said, from my perspective, again, this is Richard Fisher, voting member of the Fed, it's much too early to even think about another quantitative easing. As we've been saying for a long time, we've already fed the market too much Ritalin. That's a phrase he's used before. And now, with the tapering, the market is correcting itself without the Fed involvement. It's way too premature to talk about another QE because the market is actually doing the work. He went on to talk about the fact that the market correction that we are seeing today, in particular, and that we've seen over the past week, does not mean the economy's in trouble. I think we can put that up as well. Without mentioning any companies in particular, and this is Richard Fisher speaking, prices are getting more rational, and some very good companies are even being mispriced to the downside. A market correction does not mean the economy is in trouble. So from Fisher's perspective, what we are seeing now in the markets...
It's great to have his perspective because, as you say, we know he's a hawk, but still to just encourage all investors, I suppose, to think past just one day.
Right.
That's a key. If you're investing, that's a key point.
Now, he's also talking about rates. Of course, we have seen these extraordinarily low rates on the 10-year, which has been our focus, which is breaking below the 2. But he's looking at the longer bonds. He says, why would we want to ease more when the 30-year bond yield is below 3%? That would be unnecessary easing. Again, this is information that could really affect what happens to the market. Unnecessary easing is his phrase. We are holding $2.63 trillion of excess bank reserves right now. The banks have enough money to lend, so why would we want to add more liquidity? So he is saying, again, that right now, with all the reserves that the banks have, there's plenty of liquidity for any kind of resolution of contracts, for anything that is necessary if people begin to panic.
Well, it's a fair point, because as we've seen in Europe and we've seen in Japan, adding liquidity does not necessarily solve all problems. David, thank you for bringing us that.
Just one more thing that he was very important. He thought was very important to get it, because he knows that he is viewed as a hawk. He says the bottom line is that there is a limit to what monetary policy can do, and most central bankers say that, whether it's me or Janet Yellen or the head of the European Central Bank or the governor of the Bank of India. We don't need more monetary stimulus. The real need is for structural reform of fiscal policy. It's up to the politicians to make the government reforms necessary to spur growth. We in the United States do not need more monetary stimulus.
All
that
right.
is
well,
Richard
that's good,
Fisher.
And I'm glad he put himself in context. You know I'm a hawk, but this is still important. Thank you for bringing
You're
us
welcome.
this exclusive.
Thank you for giving me the time.
It's the right day to have it. David Asman joining us
Appreciate
there
it.
with his exclusive conversation with Richard Fisher.